Greetings. This is Brian Terrian from the Disability Digest, and welcome to our Wednesday YouTube Live special event today. Good to have industry expert attorney James Mitchell Brown back with us. Jim, good to have you here.
Great to be here.
Yep. Philip, David, thanks for joining the show today. I'm looking at my broadcast connection and it says I have an excellent connection. I think we're going to have an excellent event today. We've got some key things to go over, kind of starting with a follow-up to last time we had Attorney Brown here, and then some new current relevant commonly asked questions that are out there. So for those of you that are joining us for the first time or coming back, welcome. Attorney Brown, it's a privilege to have him here. He truly is, in my opinion, like the industry expert. He's been representing disability claimants since 1973. And has done a variety of other things. He's testified in front of Congress, recently on the CBS special People Like Us. I think that's what it's called, with Bill Moyer.
Correct.
Yep. And
Not so recent. It was 1982.
1982. But what was more recent is you received the NOSCR's Lifetime Achievement Award, which is an industry group for disability attorneys, non-attorneys. They give you, I think it was the first recipient of the Lifetime Achievement. So you've done stuff in the past, done stuff present. And here, you've been here, I don't know how many times, and we're grateful to have you here. But not only have you come here, but you helped us put together like one of the things that we've worked on together is a course to help people prepare for and ideally pass their continuing disability review. That's available to members here at the Disability Digest, 10 steps. So thank you for all of the great work that you've done in this space and joining us here today. Good. So we'll do this for a format. I have some questions that were submitted. We'll have Philip and David contribute some questions as well. For those of you that are out there listening on YouTube, on Facebook, you can submit your questions to us and just put them in the chat, and David and Philip will pick them up. I do, before we get started, I just want to give some recognition to Philip Price and his Facebook group. As I've mentioned before, Philip, we're working together because he runs a Facebook group that provides some general information and support for people, and has partnered with the Disability Digest to provide like events like this and how-tos. But Philip's group is closing in on 10,000 people in the group, which is impressive for a Facebook group. So congratulations. Yep. And I know, Philip, I said last week, we're going to do something like to celebrate. Next week, we'll come up with some type of prize drawing, bouncy house. I don't know. We'll do something. All right.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, Jim, are you ready to get going?
I'm ready.
Good. The last time you were here, we talked about the political influence on disability benefits, depending on what party. And for those of you who are like, oh, that might be interesting, I missed it, you can always listen to the replay of these on our YouTube channel. If you can't find us, just contact us in the comments. But one of the kind of the hangover topics from that is, if the Trump budget is implemented, then Social Security is, said to be broke in like 6 years. Like, can you like share any information on that? Here's the thing. I just want to help people understand, the balanced approach so they know how to cast their vote. Of course, cast your vote first, right? So that's my take on this.
Okay. Well, there are several things in the Trump budget that will hurt Social Security. The first is if somebody in your family is a high earner and you're getting Social Security, they're taxed on their Social Security income. That tax is paid to the Social Security Trust Fund. He said he'll do away with the tax on Social Security earnings. Second thing is he'll do away with taxes on overtime and on tipped wages. That means that's less money from taxes going into Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
So that reduces it. Third is part of your income, even if you're an independent contractor, is supposed to go to the Medicare fund, which is also going to go broke much faster under his budget. And he said tipped wages won't be taxed anymore. That wouldn't be that big of a deal, except a lot of very high earners on commission are going to call their commissions tips now. And all of a sudden, somebody making $3 or $4 million a year who would have to pay Medicare on that whole amount of income is going to say 2.5 million of that was tips, so they don't pay Medicare on that amount of money. Overtime doesn't get taxed. So the president of GM, who makes 40-some million dollars a year, looks at her hours, says, I work 80 hours a week. So half of my income is overtime. So therefore, I don't pay Medicare tax on half of my income. And it just decimates the fund. So
Interesting.
some of his things subtly are helping the very wealthy to the detriment of the people needing Social Security and Medicare.
Is there any counterbalance to that that's being proposed?
Nothing that would put money back in the funds.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Next question is there's long-term disability companies that offer insurance for people, typically through a job, or you can buy it privately, like I have. So if you're not able to work, then you can collect like 60% of your check. So I don't know what the exact numbers are, but I think like 25% of disability applicants, somewhere around there, have access to these policies. But there's one specific little nuance in this relationship between these long-term disability policies and Social Security that I want to get your opinion on for those that are out there. And it's this. What commonly happens is the long-term disability company, Unum, Guardian, MetLife, they all work the same way, will say to somebody who is on and receiving their disability income that when you go pursue your Social Security disability, we have a representative for you to use. I don't know how it's posed, if it's recommended or an introduction or what it is. And it's the use of that representative that I want to ask you to kind of, if you can, shed some light on what some of the considerations are that somebody should have in choosing that working relationship versus others. Does that make sense?
Yes. They used to refer people to private attorneys to represent them. Then these big mega firms wind and dine the heads of these large companies to get them to refer to them. Mostly they're non-attorney firms. Non-attorneys sometimes are excellent reps. But these are big corporations that throw you into a factory and you're just another number there. What happens is they file the claim, They file the medical records that the insurance company gave them, and they do nothing else. And they usually discount the fee. If you have long-term disability and you're in a group plan, your Social Security is subtracted from the group plan. So if you're getting $2,000 a month on long-term disability and your Social Security is $1,500 a month, the long-term disability stops and you get your Social Security. If it's reversed and you're getting $2,000 a month in long-term disability and Social Security is $1,500, you get $500 a month in LTD benefits. One of the problems you have is you're getting a tax form saying you got $2,000 in LTD benefits, even though $1,500 of it was Social Security and you didn't get the LTD, and you go through hell trying to get your taxes straightened out so you don't pay taxes on long-term disability money you didn't get. But they send you to these mega firms that may have 150 to 2,000 people processing claims. All they're doing is sitting on the phone, taking your information, filing it online. They're not getting information. They're not getting the full information. I know one of the firms, if you give them 3 doctors' names, they say, stop, that's enough. Whoa. You may have 6 or 7 doctors, they don't want them all because they're evaluated on the amount of people they talk to each day, not the quality of the work they do. They then send for no medical. Most of the people in private practice, attorney and non-attorney reps, when they file a claim, immediately send to your doctors and get medical information. These mega firms don't. They then, if you get benefits, they get their fee. What happens is, let's say you have $10,000 in past due benefits. $2,500 is withheld for the representative. So the insurance company says you only have to pay us back $7,500. They want to win the case quickly because they're turning the claims over as fast as they can. But if you're denied, it goes to the next level and the next level. But most of them are working for a fee, a maximum fee of $3,000 to $4,000. So they don't put a lot into it. They throw the claim against the wall and whatever sticks, they get paid on. They don't get reimbursed for the expenses. So if they have to pay for your medical records, that costs them. They're not looking at it and saying these medical records are going to help us win the case. They're looking at it and saying, we just had to spend $60 on John's case, and I don't know if it's going to help or not. You often don't talk to the same person when you call. There's not one person in charge of your claim. One of the things I tell people when they have these mega companies, if they've requested a hearing, ask immediately, who's going to take my hearing? Can I talk to them? You never can. A lot of times it's somebody who doesn't even work for the company. It's an independent contractor that they hire when they get the hearing notice. And there's no personal representation. If you hire your own representative, the insurance company still pays that representative. Or they don't really pay them. They subrogate only the net amount you get. I battled with some of the insurance companies on one claim recently. I took the deposition of a doctor, which was necessary to win the claim. It cost a few $100s. They didn't want to pay it. They said, we only reimburse your fee, not the expenses. And I said, we're going to reimburse you the net amount my client got. You would have gotten nothing if I didn't do that. This was your benefit, not hers. She's not going to eat that cost, so you can save more money. And it probably took a half a dozen phone calls before they agreed to take the net amount. But insurance companies think dollars. They don't think people.
Yeah. Yeah, so you brought up some interesting points. I think one of them is the fee is restricted, so they're working for less money. They're doing a high volume. That's where the service has to be questioned, right? And doing this. And if somebody's out there listening and going to be paying really the same amount of money for a disability representative, because the fee to them is the same, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they're subject to the standard Social Security fee. So if you have this option versus other representation options out there, that's what needs to be evaluated.
The
That's
one thing I warn representatives, though, is if you're representing somebody getting long-term disability, immediately write the insurance company and say, I'm representing your insured on a Social Security disability claim. Please confirm that you're only subrogating the net amount they get.
okay.
If you don't do that, you win the claim, and then they want the whole amount because you didn't notify them that you're representing them and they should subrogate only the net amount.
Got
Just
it.
a little game the insurance companies play.
Yeah, I'm sure there's other little games that I don't know about, but that's really good. Thanks for sharing that.
I'd like to
Um,
give you one other example.
sure.
Somebody hired me when she got her hearing notice. She asked the company that was representing her, what evidence do you have? They'd been representing her for about a year and a half. And they said, we don't have any. We don't do anything on a claim until we get a hearing notice. We'll start getting things now. So she fired them, hired me. I won the hearing. Because I was a second rep, we both had to file fee petitions. They filed a fee petition saying they reviewed the claim for a half hour every month from the time she began representing them until the time that she fired them. So the judge, who really didn't like this company, scheduled a hearing on the fee petitions.
Ooh.
And my client had written them a letter saying what she had been told by this person working in the office. And he said both representatives should bring their files to demonstrate what they did on the case to justify the hours spent. And the judge told me he was going to file a complaint, an ethics complaint against this company for a fraudulent fee petition, because if they didn't have any evidence and never sent for anything, what did they review for a half hour every month?
Mm, mm.
And about a week before the hearing on the fee petition, they dismissed their fee petition and waived all rights to fees,
Wow.
which
Wow.
upset the judge. He wanted the hearing.
I bet he did. Good for you. That's good. Um, one more question, and then I'm going to turn it over to Philip and David that I expect to have some questions that have accumulated. And this is just a standard one that I feel needs to be gone over every time we have you here. And I'm going to pose the question generically. Um, I have insert whatever condition you want, cannot work. What are my chances of getting approved for my benefits, right? I have degenerative this, I have depression, I have MS. So you've answered this beautifully in the past, but just for folks that may be new here, would you help them understand the general premise of getting benefits, not only getting them, it's the same thing once you get them, you have to keep them, right? So how
Right.
would you address that?
How old are you?
53.
If you're 53 with severe impairments, your chances should be in the neighborhood of 65 to 70%, maybe even a little higher, unless you get a certain few judges in the country. The worst judge in the country only paid 5% of the cases. She heard, I think, 270 and only approved 5%. She turned down all the others. There's one I had a hearing with recently who only approved 11 out of 269 last year.
Wow.
So you get judges like that, your chances are a little less, but you need an attorney who knows how to make a record so you win on appeal after the hearing.
Okay. So I'm going to redirect to my question. Is it the condition that's going to get them approved, or is it something else?
This is something I have to explain to everybody. A diagnosis is not a disability.
Thank you.
I had somebody who had a stroke came to me because he was denied disability. And he put on his form that he had a stroke. He didn't put on the form that the stroke left him paralyzed in one arm, that it left his vision impaired, his cognitive functioning impaired. It's what does that diagnosis do to you? That claimant also forgot to mention that he'd had open heart surgery and was still having chest pains, and that he's had chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. So, one of the important things when you file a claim is include everything. I go from the top of my client's head to the bottom of their feet, putting every impairment they have in. I had a judge think it was kind of funny that I had a client with severe autism, and I included his torn rotator cuff, his sprained left knee, his fractured big toe. And I said to the judge, I don't know who's reviewing this or what they're going to think is important. So I put it all in. But I also put in how that torn rotator cuff impaired his ability to do things with one arm. He couldn't have surgery because of the autism. He was afraid to have surgery. The diagnosis is the start, but what does that diagnosis do to your ability to function that gets you your disability?
Right, right. Yeah, because there could be two individuals with the same diagnoses, right? Same condition diagnosed, but the degree of severity and how it impacts them is going to be different.
Even if you take that person with degenerative disc disease and post heart attack, and if they've got a high school education and all of their past relevant work is in a factory, they're not going to be able to do it. But they could do my job or your job. So it depends a lot on the work they've done in the past, their education. I don't have to lift heavy things. I don't have to stand on my feet on a cement floor all day. So there are things I can do that many of my clients can't do because of the work they've done in the past.
We're going to talk about your job in a moment, but I want to take some time to go over to Philip, Dave. I don't know which one of you gentlemen would like to go first with some of the questions you've accumulated. You're still muted, Philip. There you go. There you go.
All right, first one comes from Anonymous. It says, I've been on SSDI for about 5 years now. I was told that I would need a re-examination after 3 years, but I haven't received anything. Should I be concerned about not receiving anything? Should I be sending in my medical update records, or should I just wait till they contact me?
I would just wait. If you send your medical records in, you may be waking a sleeping bear. They'll get to you and they get to you. Depending on your age and the impairments that got you disability, they may be leaving you alone. If you're 55 or older, they're more likely to leave you alone. If you're younger with certain impairments, they're more likely to review you. They also didn't do the continuing disability reviews very much during the COVID years. And it was only about 2 months ago that they reinstated the order that they're supposed to start doing them. So they're going to be starting to catch up. But don't poke the sleeping bear. If they're leaving you alone, don't say anything.
Yep. Just let the money keep flowing. Good one.
Next one here says, if you take more of your meds prescribed for pain and end up in the hospital with pain doctor refusing to write RX until cleared by addiction specialist, can you lose your benefits?
If you're only taking physician prescribed medicine, you won't lose your benefits. If you're taking, with one caveat, if you're supposed to take two oxycodone twice a day, and you're taking 4 oxycodone 3 times a day, you're in danger. And it's difficult when you're in so much pain to just do what the doctors say. But as long as you're relatively compliant, they're not going to cut you off for that.
Okay. All right, last one from me here. I got a call from Arkansas Friday and said they finally starting to process my application after 1 year ago. I live in Texas. Anyone have this happen? Also, I had a friend of, this is the question here. I have a friend of mine tell me that if I'm asked to go to a Social Security doctor that I should refuse because all they do is look for a reason to deny, and my doctor's documentation should be sufficient. Is this true?
Well, if you refuse to go to the Social Security doctor, they're going to turn you down. It used to be that you could demand they ask your doctor to do the tests that they wanted their doctors to do. Now they don't have to do that, but you can still ask them to. You can say, what do you want done? And ask my doctor. Some of the claims reps will do that, some won't. There are some Social Security doctors that actually give a good exam. Most of them are doing it like the bulk providers on the long-term disability claims. They want to get you in and out as fast as you can and make as much money as they can. But if you're going to go to a Social Security doctor, bring a written list of all your problems. Ask the Social Security doctor what medical evidence Social Security sent them. Social Security is supposed to send them a complete medical file, and they rarely do. Next thing I always tell people is keep track of the time you got to the office, the time you were taken in to be examined, who took your history, who did the exam. If it's a physical exam, what was it? Did they have you bend over? Did they have you bend to the side? Did they have you bend back? Did the doctor feel if there was spasm or your curve on your spine wasn't right? If it's a cardiac or internal medicine problem, did they check to see if there's swelling in your legs? Another thing that's important is pay attention if there's any inappropriate questions. There was one doctor who, anytime he had a gay person who he was examining, he tried to tell them what sinners they were and they shouldn't be gay, and he could send them to a place that they could get converted. And we got him fired finally. There are some doctors who will say something like, you're doing this because you need the money, don't you? And if you say yes, then they write in their report, there's nothing wrong, they have compensation neurosis. So I tell everybody, if the doctor says anything about money, just say, I wish I felt better. No money can take care of the pain. I just want to go back to work. And no matter how often the doctor brings that up, don't answer that question. Just talk about you miss your friends, you miss seeing people at work, you hate staying at home and feeling terrible all day, and never say anything about needing money. Just talk about how terrible your life is now because you can't work.
You know, that whole money piece in the exam is just a great point. You know, I have this journaling exercise I do every day to fill out, and it's asked me if I learned something new. Well, tomorrow I'm definitely putting yes in my journal from that.
Okay. One of the other things, when you go to your own doctor or a Social Security doctor, They always start the exam by saying, "How are you?" And people always say fine or okay. Never say that. Because if you say fine, even with your own doctor, that's the first comment in the doctor's records. And sometimes that's the only thing that Social Security reads. Patient was fine. They don't read the whole rest of the report that tells all the problems. So when the doctor says, "How are you?" say, "Not very good. Here's what's bothering me today." So that they don't write "you were fine" on the first line of their office records.
Okay, good point. Great questions, Philip. Thanks for the contribution. All right, David, on to you.
Yep. Someone here named, let me see, pull up his name, Giga1017. But he has two questions, actually. He says, my CDR 455 asks if your doctor discussed going back to work and if your condition is the same or worse. What if you haven't had that conversation at all in all 9 years and 3 CDRs later? And his follow-up question is, has your view changed on mailing in a CDR 455 versus filling it out online? Don't know if you completely understand the two questions.
Yep, I do. If your doctor hasn't discussed going back to work, the doctor probably doesn't. Assuming the doctor knows you're not working, they probably don't think you can. Sometimes I tell people, ask your doctor what restrictions you have. For Social Security to terminate your benefits, they have to prove that you've improved enough to be able to return to work. So you could have improved and still not improved enough to return to work. So it's a fine line there. One of the important things is make sure you're still seeing a doctor while you're getting disability. But it's no problem if your doctor hasn't discussed returning to work, or if you haven't discussed it with your doctor. If you're still not feeling good enough to return to work, why would you discuss it with your doctor? If you felt like maybe I could try working again, you'd say to the doctor, "Do you think I'm ready to work?" or "What restrictions would I have if I work?" And then you'd be discussing it. If you're not ready, you don't discuss it. As far as filling the form out online or mailing it in, if you fill it out online, they're probably going to get it faster. If you mail it in, it goes to London, Kentucky, where it then gets scanned into a computer and eventually gets to your local office where it sits in a cloud for a while. It doesn't really matter as long as you make sure you do it.
Thank you. Thank you for your thorough answers. I think
I want to give one other example of somebody. I had somebody who got disability because he had cancer. The cancer went into remission, but in between the cancer going into remission and the CDR, he had 2 back surgeries and injured his knee pretty severely that was inoperable. So they were going to terminate him because his cancer was in remission, and they didn't ask anything about any other medical problems, so he didn't answer anything about them. If you're getting a CDR, be sure to include all of your other health problems. Don't let them just cut you off based on what they put you on disability for. Throw everything else in there that you have wrong with you.
Thank you for those perfectly answer Giga's question. I hope he's still listening. Right. So my next question that I will present is, this is probably, and I think this has surfaced more than twice in my experience. So it's a simple question, but I think it's important to address to everyone. If I'm denied SSI, how high are the chances it is that I get denied at SSDI too?
If you're denied SSI, you're going to be denied. The test is the same. So if you're denied one, you're going to be denied both, unless you're denied SSI because your resources are too great. let's say that you have assets of over $2,000, a bank account, stocks or bonds, things like that. They're going to deny your SSI because you have assets, but they're still going to process the SSDI. So they're not totally connected. But if it's strictly on a disability status, if they deny one, they deny the other.
Thank you. A new question from Vince Coslow in the chat box or in the comment section. He says, I have heart problems and my medication costs around $1,000 per month, which is currently covered by my Medicare. My savings consist of a lump sum I received when I filed my claim 2 years ago. I recently received a letter stating that as a single person, I cannot have more than $17,000 in savings. Does the lump sum from my claim count toward that $17,000 limit? And what does that letter actually say?
If it's Social Security disability, your savings don't matter at all.
Nope.
If it's SSI, it might matter, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. If it's SSI, he may need to get that money into a special needs trust, but then you need a estate planning lawyer for that. But that doesn't make sense. If he wants to send me the letter, I'd talk to him about it.
Right. I will put your contact in the comment section for Vince. All right. Philip, do you have more questions?
No, that's it for me.
I've got a few more when there's a break.
Go ahead, Brian.
So here's one I'd like you to address as the fee for Social Security disability representation is going to change for those going through the approval process, which I expect will also impact people that need legal representation for a continuing disability review. And my specifics on this is like, why is the fee? Do you have a theory as to why the fee is being increased? Because people are grumbling about it. They're like, "Oh my God, when it was $6,000 and it was 7,200, now it's going to 9,200." So, anything you can share on that?
Well, in 2009, it was 4,000, maximum of 4,000. If it was a personal injury case, it would be a third to 40% of the entire settlement. In Social Security, somebody's getting, well, on somebody I just sent a letter to, my fee was $7,200. His past due benefit was about $80,000. And if he remains disabled through retirement age, he's going to get about $400,000. So the 7,200 wasn't much out of that much money he's getting. The system is getting more complicated. They're requiring more things to be done on cases in more difficult ways. And they're still capping it. It's a maximum, it's not $9,200 on every case. It's 25% of your past due benefit with a maximum of $9,200.
Thank you.
Last year, I probably had 10 cases where my clients got over $100,000 in past due benefit, and my fee was $7,200. If it was a full 25%, I would have gotten $25,000 to $40,000 on each of those cases, but I got $7,200 on each of those cases. I'm not complaining, by the way. That's what the law is. I know what it is going in. My clients know what it is. A couple of those people wanted to pay me more, and I assured them I didn't want to go to jail for that.
Right.
the commissioner recognizes the fact that the system has gotten more difficult. This is the first commissioner who's trying to make the system more fair. If they actually did it in a more fair way at the earlier stages, people would win fast sooner and the fees would be much lower. I've suggested that they do more extensive training of the people who make the initial decisions. They're getting about a month of training and then thrown in to make decisions, and they don't understand a lot of what they have to do. It's total on-the-job training. And if we could get more people paid faster, the fees would be lower.
Yeah.
That's not the representative's fault. The system isn't geared to do it the way they should do it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I met with the commissioner, I said, that's where you should be investing money. The hearing process is the most expensive part of the system. If they invested money into the initial part of it, they would cut costs tremendously at the back end. But they raised the maximum fee, but it's still never more than 25%. And it's only going to affect about 20% of the cases.
Right. Because the others can win it earlier if they do it right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You brought up another thing that has come up in recent weeks. I find that people are, because of the amount of money, people are more involved in their case, which I think is great. We encourage people, of course, to follow these events and the other information we provide as members. But my question is this. We've had individuals that have come to us and said, listen, at the initial reconsideration stage, I think I meet this grid listing, which, in some cases they do. My point is, arguing a grid, and if you don't know what the grid level is, maybe grids are, Jim, you could give a brief explanation. The point of the question is, are people at Social Security trained enough, in your opinion, to recognize a grid ruling at the initial or reconsideration stage?
A few are. Most of them aren't. And that's where they need more teaching and more education. I submit a memo on my initial and recons if they're supposed to grid out, and it will say this is a 55-year-old claimant limited to sedentary work. So based on the grid rule such and such, he should be granted benefits beginning with the alleged onset date.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't know the grid, I'm telling them where to look it up to see that I'm right.
Mm-hmm.
If I just submitted the evidence, they might notice it, they might not.
Got it.
I'd like to give them a roadmap to pay the case.
Do their work for them. Yeah. Yeah. Good point. You mentioned something as we were getting ready to come on and go live that I want to just touch on as kind of the next to the last thing as we get ready to wrap up here. For those that are out there, are Social Security disability recipients with student loans, would you share the information that you shared with us prior to going live?
Okay. If you're getting Social Security disability and you have a student loan, you can get that loan waived. Anybody on Social Security disability or SSI even, with a student loan can file a form. You can call Social Security and get the form, and the loan is waived. It's not suspended, it's waived. They wipe out that loan. In the last month, I've had 2 clients with loans of over $20,000 who are going to take their past due benefit and pay off the loan. And I told them, you don't owe that money anymore. Get the form and it's wiped out. And both of them got the form and were told, we'll waive the loan. You don't owe it anymore. So it's, I on one of the people, their past due benefit was over 40,000. The other was close to 40. And it was like getting an extra $20,000 by winning their Social Security. So it's a big deal, and it's an unknown benefit that the government doesn't let people know enough about, partly because it's the banks that are managing the student loans, and they don't want to let you know that you don't have to pay it back.
Yeah, good point. If there are people out there listening to this that have student loans that you haven't done this or you have done this, we would love to hear from you in the comments. So that would be great. This is the last segment of information that I want to go over with you. The work that we do here at the Disability Digest is focused to help people get their benefits, keep them, maximize them. And in talking to people throughout the process, one of the things that is at the core of everybody's life, or doesn't matter where they are, even if they're an able-bodied person like me, is like, what is going to be the newfound purpose for somebody who's had a life-altering change because of a sickness or an injury? Because, like you mentioned, their connection to people at work, their identity oftentimes is tied to work, and you you put that in with not feeling well and staying home with all that time. So, and Philip speaks to this beautifully about, his work here is part of his purpose and keeps him going. But my question to you on this topic is this. I mean, you probably don't have to do this. And you, in my opinion, are like at the top of your game. I was just at an industry conference and you gave this beautiful presentation. I don't know how many steps you did in that, but you counted them 10,000 and something while you presented. But you've got a lot of energy and you provide a great value to this. So I look at you as having as an individual that has definitely fulfilled their purpose. So is there anything that you could share to others that are out there, that could help them find their purpose? And maybe it's not going back to work. Maybe there's some other insights you have, but that's what I wanted to ask, if you have something to share with our audience on that.
That's a tough one. Okay. First of all, there is a psychologist at Cleveland Clinic who's doing research and probably going to write a book to show that when you've had this life-altering event, whether it's an injury, a chronic disease that keeps you from working, you're more prone to anxiety and depression. And the sooner you get treatment for it, the sooner you can deal with the physical, and you recover faster from the physical with some mental health therapy faster too. And she was surprised with her research that she was encouraged to write a book. She was just doing a paper on it because she said it's so obvious. Why do they want a book? But it's going to be turned into a book. Probably be 2 years until it comes out. But it's life altering. I've had my life altering. 30 years ago, I had ruptured cerebral aneurysms. I was given less than a 5% chance of surviving the surgery. Told I'd probably never work again. 6 weeks later, I was in my office 2 hours a day. 11 months later, I did a jury trial. But then I found out I was having seizures and TIAs, and fatigue was the cause. And at that time, I was getting in my office at 5:30 in the morning, and twice a week, I'd start seeing clients at 6. I was in Washington 3 or 4 times a month. And I was literally killing myself. So I had to learn to change my ways. There's one event that I think about that keeps me going. There's a lot of events that keep me going. My family, what I do for people. But I had created the Volunteer Lawyers for the Homeless in Northern Ohio and had lawyers going to homeless shelters every month. And in 1993, I was at a shelter and there was a lady with 6 little children. They were stepladder kids. And she didn't look like she belonged in the shelter. And my wife said to me, talk to her, something's wrong. So I said to her, what happened? And she said, well, my husband died. He worked in the steel mills for 19 years and he died, and I don't have any money, and my house is being foreclosed on.
Ooh.
And I said to her, well, what about your life insurance from the mill? And she said, what life insurance? And I said, he had a life insurance policy from his job. They owe you money. And I said, and what about his pension? And she said, what pension? And I said, you have a pension coming from his work there. And I gave her the name of the human resource director at the mill, who I knew from my work comp practice. And I said, tell him if he doesn't get you the money in 5 days, I'm going to sue him, which he knew I wouldn't. He was a friend. 4 days later, she got a check for $50,000 for the life insurance. She ended up getting about $60,000 more for the past due pension benefit. I asked her about the Social Security survivor's benefit, and she said, what's that? And I told her that. So she took the life insurance and paid off the mortgage. Between the Social Security and the pension, in the early 90s, she was getting almost $5,000 a month. Moved back into her suburban home, put her kids back in the schools. And about 6 months later, she showed up at my office with her 7-year-old and a tray of cookies for my staff. And the 7-year-old said, Mr. James, I love you. And I said to him, what does I love you mean? And he thought a minute and he said, it means you make my heart smile. And anytime it's a bad day, I think I have to make somebody's heart smile today. And it's something that's kept me going for a long time. I just want to make somebody's heart smile every day because it's a good way to live your life.
Yeah, that's powerful. Good for you. That's an awesome story. Yeah, so I mean, we wish for everybody out there to find your purpose or way to make your heart smile, right?
Absolutely. It's a good way to live.
It is a great way to live. And if you can't find it, I encourage you to keep looking. So that's awesome. I thank you for sharing that. So in respect of your time, hopefully you'll come back, maybe post-election, and we can kind of unpack everything and how it's going to impact benefits. That would be awesome, right?
Well, we'll pick a date in December.
Yeah, good. So as we wrap up, we're here every Wednesday. I want to thank all of you out there that have attended today's event. Whether you're listening to it on Facebook, YouTube, or the replay, thank you for your participation here at the Disability Digest. For more information about how to get, keep, and maximize your disability benefits, or contact any of us, join us as a member if you're not a member already. David will put a link in the respective chats for the Disability Digest, and reach out to us, and we'd be glad to do what we can to help you out. So Philip, David, Jim, thanks so much for your participation today. Look forward to the next time.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Make it a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.